glory, a God-sized story.
Hello and welcome to a very unique episode of God-Sized Stories. So, as this podcast continues to grow, I want to try to do new and different things here and there. This won't be a normal episode, it'll probably be a bonus episode. But I'm with Tyler Nelson again. And
bonus episode.
We're in his car right now, driving, going to get coffee. So I thought this might be a fun way to maybe share some stories with people that we both have the same story together. We both might have gone on a same trip, or we might have been at a concert or something, anything together. And it would be maybe a silly way to do this new experience together. So if the recording's a little off, the sound's a little crazy, it's because I'm trying something new, and I hope you like it, and I hope it goes well. So the story we're going to talk about today is the kind of how Tyler and I got to know each other. Like, we'd met a couple times beforehand, but we didn't know each other well. We both went to Chicago on a youth mission trip. I went as a leader. We were both going to Village Church of Gurnee at the time. And we were with a partner ministry there called Sunshine Gospel Ministries. Tyler, had you been to this trip before? Was that your first time on that trip?
No, that was my first time.
Okay, it's not a trip I know they do all the time. I know you typically have gone with them to Navajo.
Yeah, I usually go with our church to the Navajo Nation reservation in New Mexico, and we serve the people there. We run a vacation Bible school for the week that we're there, and we built homes.
So our story we're going to talk about today, rewind our brains a little bit back to the summer of 2016, and we went to Southside Chicago. So first, a little bit about me. If you don't know me super well, I'm just going to give a little introspective to the fact of I don't like driving. And for our listeners too, I'm not driving right now. I have all my equipment here, and Tyler's driving. Nothing's in his way or obstructing his view at all. But I'm not a fan of driving myself. I love being the passenger and all of that. But for a trip like this, the team went down in 3 rented minivans. And if you've ever rented a car before, you'll know that you have to be at least the age of 25 to drive that vehicle. Well, I was the only person in my vehicle the age of 25, so I was in charge of driving for the whole week in Chicago. And I said once I dislike driving, and 2, driving in the city is like my worst nightmare.
Had you really driven in the city much?
Oh gosh, no. Maybe once, if that. And then I'm driving
threw you in there.
Yes, Dan was like
Chicago,
exactly
downtown driving every day for a week.
Yeah, Dan Hayes is like, "Can you do this?" And I'm like, "Do I want to or can I?" I'm like, "It's something I physically can do, but I'd not prefer." So that was a big stretch of growth for me, was learning to do that for a week, and just the stress. And but Tyler and I were reminiscing earlier about this, and it was just a great sense of bonding with each other when I finally there was one day that I had a particularly rough moment, and we were driving back to the church we were staying at, and it was like rush hour traffic, and I finally had it, and I went full Chicago driver.
Oh, that was amazing. That was the best moment. You were kind of a little nervous, the whole time. Pretty hectic out there, and anything can happen. Unexpected always, and people are cutting you off the whole time, and then you finally you went for it. You went for the Chicago driving, which is not laid back, very aggressive.
Yep.
Changed lanes, and we made it to the place well and on time. It was great.
There was cheers from the back of the van.
All of a sudden, when he switched lanes, we started cheering. Because up until that point, the whole week, he basically just would stay in the same lane. Because it's kind of nerve-wracking. So that was great.
Yeah, so that was a wonderful experience. So really, what the week kind of looked like, we split up into a couple different teams during the day. A team that I was with was running a VBS at the church that we were staying in called Live in Hope in Southside Chicago. Tyler, your team, you went, where did you go?
I went to the First Baptist Church, and that's like actually the first church they built in Chicago or something. Very old church, and I believe we ran VBS out of it because we had our own thing, and then just like projects on the church because it was so old.
I know, I remember hearing one story of some craziness.
Yeah, so this church was like, honestly, it was so old. There was this basement that was insane. It looked like a dungeon down there, like some catacombs from France or something. It was there was like waterways down there. Like there was like you could walk, but then there was like a channel of like water.
Sure.
It was really weird, and there was just like old machines and stuff down there, and there really wasn't any lights hooked up down there. But one of the only sources of water where I could fill up big buckets of water was down in this basement, and everybody was terrified to go down there, but I was like, well, someone has to, so I was the one that went down there all week and kept filling up buckets of water, and yeah, just going down in the darkness through these like under the church catacomb looking things. That was
real dungeon.
Yeah.
Chicago dungeon. So that was our mornings. In the afternoons and early evenings, we would go and do, they called them like excursions, I think, from Sunshine Gospel. One day we went to Pacific Garden Mission, which if you don't know what that is, it's a really big homeless shelter. It's giant. They record, it's the Unshackled news thing from their radio program.
Were they on the south side?
No, that was like right in the heart of Chicago. Like it was, it was near downtown.
I didn't think it was.
Yeah.
It serves almost.
So we got a tour of that place just to get, just to have our hearts checked about the homeless population of Chicago and some of the things they deal with. And that was really cool and eye-opening. Another thing we did on another day, I really appreciated. We did an extensive ride on the L, but it was very purpose-driven. And before we left for this, I pulled out my notebook from that week, and I still had all these notes for what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to sit down. We got on the Green Line, on the last stop on the Green Line, and we took it all the way into the Loop, and then we hopped on the Blue Line and went all the way north, and then back down to where we started. And we were supposed to look for like things that we noticed along the way, like how things changed, how maybe the people changed and stuff like that. And it was really amazing how you could see like the price change and stuff like that. And they really encouraged us to try to talk to people along the way. And I found it really funny, especially for me. I love talking to people, hence this podcast. Well, as soon as we got on the Blue Line and started going up north past the city, no one wanted to talk. Everyone had headphones in. Everyone was so isolated, all about just them. And it was kind of a bummer. And then on the way back, when we got back on the Green Line, I just sat and I talked to this guy that is lived his whole life South Side Chicago and just telling me these stories. It was a fantastic time. But then probably the most impactful day, we packed a bunch of, instead of going to our morning things, we packed these lunches. And we went right downtown and we split into groups and we shared a meal with people who were living on the street and really had a time to get to know them and pray for them. Tyler, you had a really great experience with this.
Yeah, that was a really cool experience. It kind of took me out. I've been to Chicago my whole life. I've grown up here and have gone down to the city, but never really stopped to put myself in the position of those homeless people down there who literally they have to find shelter, food, comfort, and any way they can. So we packed lunches and had a bunch of lunches ready just to go around and find homeless people, sit down and talk with them. We paired up. So it was me and my friend. Me and her went, talked to a bunch of homeless people, and I found out a lot about where they had come from, what they were doing there, and then just talking to them about God. Most of them brought up religion as well. I think they were kind of looking for something. So,
and we were talking like this is now a really wonderful, practical way that you love to show just His mercy, right?
Yeah. At the end of all of it, no one had told us that we should pray with them, but all of a sudden, my friend offered to pray with them for a while. So then we asked them if they have any requests to pray about, and then they were really kind of taken back by it. Really special moment that we had with a lot of people for that whole evening. And then we prayed with them for a while.
It was funny too, because actually it wasn't funny for me because we had extremely opposite experiences, and I'll get into mine here in a little bit. But the silliness of this podcast, as I said, we're going to get coffee. So Tyler and I were about to hit up the drive-thru here and order some coffee as we're going. But yeah, I had this opposite experience. I ended up, as one of the adults, I'll put quotes around that because I was barely an adult, I would say. I was going around block by block, kind of just watching on people, making sure that everything was going good, everyone was safe. And then once it looked like it was comfortable, I was like, you know what? I'll go find someone, I'll talk to them, we'll see how it goes. Which for me was way beyond my comfort zone. What we're about to do here in a second is way more in my comfort zone.
1 second, please.
Yeah, I know when you're ready.
Order what you want.
Could I get the nitro cold brew with
Sure. What size on that one?
grande?
Anything else?
Yeah, 1 second.
Grande Blonde Americana.
Sorry, did you want that one hot or egg?
Hot, please.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll see you out here.
Thank you. So I finally decided to go ahead and talk to someone, which was extremely out of my comfort zone. And I don't know what I said, but I must have said something that really made this man upset. And I still feel bad about it to this day. But pretty much after that, the dude just he robbed me. He told me to give him money or he was going to beat me up. And he's like, I see a cop down there 3 blocks. I don't care if I go to jail. And I just I was terrified. And it really it stressed me out. And because maybe I wasn't necessarily talking to him in the most Christ-filled way. I thought I was, but there was probably some selfishness in my heart that it really got checked. But then, right after that was then when we got in the car and I had the driving experience when I went full Chicago and got the cheers from the bleachers in the back.
Yeah.
So it was it was an interesting afternoon for me. But then when we got back and we would have these evening sessions, they would teach us things about the city history, and it was quite a good experience. We had these teachers that most of them had lived in Southside Chicago their entire lives, and here's me, a white country bumpkin who knows nothing about culture, knows nothing about real diversity. And there's these men and women just teaching us things that I've never realized, and it caused me to really pray and really do some introspection on my life and where God wants me to reach out to people better. But two kind of last highlights before the big funny finale we have here is no great trip is without the wonderful people you meet while there. Tyler, you you're still friends with one of the guys we met.
Absolutely. Yeah, I met a really nice. He was very funny, and also he's gigantic. He must be like 7 feet tall. I'm not sure of his actual height. I think it might be more like 6.
He's like 6'8", but like we met him, and how old was he when we met him?
Oh my gosh, he was like 15 or something.
He was
when we
already
met him.
6'8".
He was 6'8", and he was 15. I'm like, I think I had just turned 18. I'm an adult, and this guy is 15. He's like
tower.
He was the tower over everyone. It was amazing. What a cool guy. That really made the trip a lot of fun. He lives down there in the South side. Yeah.
He like the main memory I have from him, the story that you still love to tell people is like how many people did he end up like leapfrog jumping over their head standing?
Oh, so I remember how this came about too. We were sitting eating lunch or dinner together, and then he just like gives me this crazed eye look. He's like, "I could jump over you." I was like, "What?" I was like, "What are you talking? What?" He's like, "I can jump over you." I was like, "Right now?" He's like, "No, let's go outside. I'll jump over you." Oh, okay. So we go out on the sidewalk, and then he just gets a head start, sprints at me on the sidewalk, and leaps over my head. It was amazing. And then I come inside dinner, and I'm like freaking out, telling people, like, "Yo, you got to see this guy. He can jump over people." And then he's like, "I can jump over 2 of you." So 2 of us came out there, jumped over us, and everyone is freaking out. And then eventually we get to 4 people all lined up back to back, and we were like, "No way, he can't do this." It was too far. Freddie was gonna knock the last person in the head and just bring him down to the ground. He cleared 4 people. So.
Oh man, awesome! Also, another wonderful memory from the trip. As many of us, as example, we just went and got coffee. Coffee's such an important thing to culture. And right next to this place, Sunshine Gospel, is this wonderful business called Green Line Coffee, where we had to go every single morning because we're staying up late, we're waking up early, we're doing stuff all day. It's exhausting. We need our caffeine fix. Tyler, I think you might know a little bit more about how the organization runs and stuff, right?
Oh, Green Line. Yeah, somehow the money goes all locally, and they hire just locally. It's all like sourced and produced like that. It's meant for job creation and
right.
They're like trying to start up businesses and bring income just to literally the local families.
Such a blessing
in the communities. Yeah, my gosh, that coffee shop was amazing.
Awesome.
Delicious. But I don't really like my coffee with any cream and sugar.
Of course.
I like it straight up as espresso as espresso can be. So I basically show up to the coffee shop and say, "How dark can we get this?" Because that's what I want. And they're like, "Oh, we got you." That I still remember that whatever strand of beans that was, however they made it, seriously, that week, every morning, that coffee that I got every day was one of the best espressos I've ever had in my whole life. It just hit me in a way that no other espresso has hit me in my whole life. It was so bitter and so good. It was amazing. It really just made you pucker up. And so a lot of the people on the trip had either not really had espresso like that, or definitely just don't even like the taste of it. So I loved trying to share my drink with people and just see their reactions, because people will make the best expressions drinking that. So I got it was about 4 people hooked on this, and we would drink it every morning as like ritualistic, and we created like a lore behind the coffee that a car ran for 1 million miles, and we seeped the last bit of oil out of it and wrung that in there, mixed with like this ancient Aztec dung or something. Just like
awesome.
Yeah, so it was the best coffee ever.
And so we're gonna finish this time just talking about the funniest moment of the whole week, but there's definitely some background you have to get into first for it, Tyler.
So for going to the Chicago missions trip, like I said, I usually go to Navajo Nation, New Mexico. I've done that 4 times. So when I was in New Mexico, I had this friend who was an extreme prankster, and he found it amusing to go through my entire luggage and hide everything all across the building and the area we are staying at. And not an easy to reach places. He'd like zip tie things, and it's hanging from the ceiling. And like the hardest one to find was my goldfish. I bought a giant, the big box of goldfish, and I was super hungry for that. And I found it behind the stove in like the piping.
Yeah.
When I was looking for that, me and my other friend found a giant cardboard cutout of a RoboCop. And it just got us to thinking later that day, like, what if we set this up directly outside of the dorm area at nighttime when no one was around? So that night, when everyone went to bed, me and my friend got out, got the RoboCop, and then duct taped a broom to the back of it, and then stood it up like there was these sliding glass doors, and he was just facing through the glass doors. So it looked like someone was standing there peering in the glass doors, and there's pitch black all around him, and you just see this figure, basically. Luckily for us, a leader of ours walked in while we were duct taping it, so he knew about the prank, which was just convenient because the leader of the whole trip woke up and then started freaking out, thinking someone was breaking in. So he went to wake up the other leader and was like, yo, there's someone trying to break in. He's like, or I think it's Nate, and like he's like sleepwalking, and just like standing there. He's like, something's wrong with him. And then the other leader was like, oh no, that's just a prop, go back to bed. He's like, what? So he went back to bed, but we ended up scaring basically everyone in there, and they all had different stories to tell. Like, our one friend was having a nightmare, actually, that night, and he woke up and thought that was, like, a figure from his nightmare standing there, and he actually vomited. He was so scared. Yeah, without exaggerating, like, honestly, the cutout looks very scary. I set it up at the end of the hallway and went to bed, and I was the last one going to bed. I looked back down the hallway, and I got chills down my whole body just looking at it, and like I knew what it was, and I set it up, but I literally was like, oh wow, that looks scary. And then I was like, I don't know, whatever. I just went to bed.
So then fast forward after that silliness to Chicago and that trip.
So my friend who we did the prank together in Navajo was like, hey, let's try and do this again, because it went over so well the first time. So we had planned on doing it, but I didn't remember to bring the cutout. So I had to make a makeshift one, and basically we found a lot of cardboard, and I laid him down in the bathroom on top of the cardboard, and then traced around him and cut this out. And I called Craig over because it was important to us that another leader knew about it, so that everyone just doesn't start freaking out in the middle of the night when there's a strange man just standing there in the dark. So I showed Craig, and then we got a bunch of my clothes and then like a hoodie and stuff and put that up on it. So it's like a life-size man, and we propped him up against a chair and also put him outside of like a glass.
Yeah, so like the place we were staying in this church, and the guys were all staying in the sanctuary of the church. Yeah. And so the entrance of the sanctuary was a bunch of glass doors. So you can easily imagine that. And they propped him up leaning against the glass doors with his arms up, like looking like he was like trying to peek into the room to see what was going on.
So, I mean, it definitely, yeah. So whoever got up in the middle of the night, which was several people, they just thought someone was breaking in or someone was standing there, and they got a pretty nice jolt.
And then we planned pretty well, too, because the other male leader on the trip, we knew what time he was getting up. We got up at the same time all week. So it's like I set my alarm for like 5 minutes before his alarm went off, so I'd make sure I'm awake. And so I woke up real quietly, and I'm just laying there still on the floor. And then his alarm goes off, and a couple other people wake up, and one of the kids is like, he's like, is there somebody? Is there somebody in the window? Like, Paul, look over there. What's over there? And Paul like gets up, and he comes over to where I'm sleeping. He's like, hey, I think there's someone at the door. He's in the building. You need to come with me. And I've never had to try so hard not to laugh at anything in my life. And we went out there, and he realized it's just cardboard. And then we kind of told him the whole thing, and it was a great laugh. But really, the whole heart behind this discussion right now is to really encourage all of you listening out there. This is an experience Tyler and I shared together as brothers in Christ. I really got to know Tyler a lot during that. And just after that, then that fall, my wife and I started a ministry at that church, Village Church, reaching out to the college-age kids that were still around. And I really look back at that week as a time I got to know Tyler really well. So it's like you might not have come to the group if you didn't know him. You know, was this weird guy.
That was such a great week.
And it really was. We had a great time. So, listeners, I really want to encourage you out there. Really take stock this weekend over all of those great connections in your life, those people you've met doing great things. Because, like, we talked about a lot of the fun times here, but really the whole heart of that week was connecting with God and each other through God and really learning about how he works in areas very different than ours. I really want to encourage you, if you have a chance to go on some type of missions thing with your church, whether it's shorter or longer term, or really take those opportunities. Serving in the kingdom is the best way to make lifelong friendships that really matter. That's where you're going to meet people that change your life, and you have the opportunity to change. So take the leap. It's well worth it. Thank you very much. Goodbye.